Great news for Beerus fans and fans of DBS. The Arrive Hakai Goodbye shirt, which I was only able to put out for a brief time, is now back in the new Geekdom 101 store. Beerus fans must pick this shirt up because it represents the badassery of Beerus. Plus, it comes in multiple sizes, multiple styles, and you can actually buy hats as well. We have hats available right now. In fact, everything you could ever want is available right now in the new official Geekdom 101 store, which right now has several different designs up, and I want you all to check it out. I'll leave a link down below to the store and to the Beerus merchandise. Check it out. Thank you so much for buying a piece of clothing if you did recently, and now let's get to the video. Recently, I did a video called Ultra Ego Vegeta Explained, and in that video, I went into the road that Vegeta took to achieve the power of a god of destruction and why that form was so fitting of the Prince of all Saiyans. But on this video, I want to have a discussion about the key differences between Ultra Instinct and Ultra Ego as far as the Eastern philosophy, martial arts perspective. What was Toriyama and Toyotaro? What are they really telling us here about the different philosophies behind Goku and Vegeta and how in some ways they mirror each other, but in other ways they're very different? When you look at these two forms, they represent a much deeper aspect of Dragon Ball that a lot of fans just don't talk about. And today I want to talk about it to give everybody a better appreciation of what they were going for. So joining me on this video is actually the guy who helped co-write the Ultra Ego Vegeta video as a researcher. Please welcome Jordan. What's up?
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Jordan, of course, has been a featured guest on the Geekdom 101 manga review streams. He's been around. He's got his own YouTube channel. So I will leave a link down below for you to check it out. What do you do on your YouTube channel?
So, I use my YouTube channel to discuss different topics about Dragon Ball that interest me, and I review the current events of Dragon Ball as much as I can. In the future, I will be using it to keep people updated on my fan projects, which include a manga and an animated series. So, if you're interested, check it out, and I'll definitely appreciate it.
Fantastic. So check that out for sure. And of course, if you're new here, subscribe. We talk about Dragon Ball on a much higher level than some folks are willing to admit because it's a much deeper series. And leave a like so that other Dragon Ball fans can see this because the YouTube algorithm is not always kind. I really work hard to produce content to make sure you guys are entertained and also a little bit of education. So let's talk about this, bro. Ultra Instinct versus Ultra Ego. Yin and Yang. Ultra Instinct, Goku's path, the path of the angels. Much more philosophical, much more of a deep thinker, much more about letting go and letting your body do its own thing. The body instinctually moves. The brain is turned off. Actually, Sun Wukong, a lot of this in Journey to the West and a lot of Eastern martial arts is about turning off your brain. A lot of meditation. There's a lot of really, really deep things that if people do their homework on Eastern religion, you come to learn about a lot of the philosophies that Dragon Ball has taken from that, because Toriyama was really into that stuff. Ultra Ego is at the other side of it, where it's not really about letting go. It's actually about accepting oneself and accepting one's duties. And to me, it's really interesting as to how even this far into Dragon Ball, even decades after the end of the original manga, Toriyama is still coming up with ways to have these characters not necessarily clash, but have a clash of ideology.
That's really the overall theme of all of Dragon Ball, and almost every arc is a clash of ideology.
Yeah, no, and I love it, and it really gets deeper as the series progresses. You know, it's sometimes, I mean, it's not always perfect. So tell us about some of the philosophical differences between Ultra Instinct and Ultra Ego when it comes to Goku and Vegeta's pathways in becoming better martial artists.
Okay, so the concept of yin and yang is mainly derived from a series of texts written by the father of Taoism, whose name is Lao Tzu or Lao Tzu. There's a bunch of different ways to pronounce his name. But much like Journey to the West is the source material for Dragon Ball, the Tao Te Ching is the source material for Journey to the West. Journey to the West took from the Tao Te Ching in order to write its story.
And we're going back hundreds. We're going back hundreds of years. This is very old stuff.
Yeah. So basically, the Journey to the West uses the Tao Te Ching as a guide for the morals that the story is basically trying to portray. And so there's a character in Journey to the West that matches everything that Akira Toriyama does with Vegeta as a character. and his name is the six-eared macaque. So Sun Wukong was a macaque. That's what he was. He was a monkey, but there was another one like him who gained all his abilities. And how he did that was when Sun Wukong met his master, Subhuti, which, interestingly enough, Toriyama took Subhuti and he split him into two characters, Grandpa Gohan and Master Roshi. There's like aspects of each character that he split between those two characters. So, like, for example, Subhuti is the one that gave Sun Wukong his name, and Grandpa Gohan is the one that named Goku Goku, right?
And yeah, then, and of course, the ancient martial arts, you know, senin, as they say, is something we see time and time again from anime, from kung fu movies. This is ingrained in Eastern culture. Like the Chinese and Japanese, this is literally hundreds of years. It's no different than when, you know, in the West, we have our own sort of folk tales. This is what they are really into. So if you grow up in that environment, you're going to be familiar with all this. It's just us in the West that might not know unless we look into it.
Right, and Goku being raised where he is a reference to Sun Wukong being sealed into 5 Phases Mountain, which the intentions of that was to teach him manners. And as you know, in Dragon Ball Minus, whenever Goku is discovered by Grandpa Gohan specifically tells him that he's going to teach him manners, and he also teaches him martial arts. So there's tons of references to Journey to the West like that in the story. But when it comes to Vegeta, Vegeta is based on a character that's actually meant to be the evil twin of Sun Wukong himself. And the way he's introduced to the story is when Sun Wukong is talking to Subhuti, he overhears the conversation between the two, because what's special about this character is that he can hear everything in the universe, right? So he overhears what this character is teaching him, and instead of having a master to guide him to master all these things, he does it all by himself. And this character is actually supposed to be a representation of Sun Wukong pre-character development. So before Sun Wukong is developed as a character by being taught by Subhuti and being sealed in 5 Phases Mountain, he's an instinctual creature, but he's also very egotistical, and he has a lot of issues. Well, this character is like if Sun Wukong never learned his lesson at all. And when he's introduced later on in the story, so like, for example, Vegeta, he's introduced to the story because he eavesdrops on a conversation between Raditz and Goku, right? And he ends up using that to try and achieve immortality. Well, this character, he eavesdrops on Sun Wukong's conversation specifically to learn the secret of immortality. So there's your first parallel between the two. And then another thing is he trains and masters all the secrets that he overhears in this conversation on his own. And this character also believes himself to be the true Monkey King, which is exactly like Vegeta.
Yeah, so, it's not identical because Toriyama borrowed ideas from several different stories to make Vegeta, but there's a lot there, you know. And how does this relate to Ultra Ego, though, and Ultra Instinct?
I'm getting to that. So this character also wanted to make the Journey to the West on his own, right? So this character actually represents Sun Wukong's ego, which he conquered by the end of the story. By the end of the story, when he finds enlightenment, he's a completely changed being. Sun Wukong, when he goes on the Journey to the West, the reason he goes on the Journey West with other people is to learn the value of people, much like Goku in Dragon Ball. And by the end of the journey, he is completely compassionate towards everyone. So this character is based on Vegeta and the ego, just like, in Dragon Ball. And Sun Wukong, Goku's character, is basically based on Sun Wukong after he's already been completely developed as a character and learned universal compassion.
And universal compassion could even be compared to Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs when you become self-actualized. See, I've talked about that also on videos from the other channel that I've done, World of Geekdom, about this kind of stuff. Like I love talking about the philosophy, because a lot of it, I feel like people could use it in real life to really help themselves and learn about themselves if they kind of apply some of this stuff, you know?
Yeah, well, the Tao Te Ching, when the book was written, it was actually written as a criticism of war-crazed Chinese royalty. The whole reason that the book was written was because Lao Tzu, the guy that wrote the book, was tired of seeing this same cycle happen over and over again. Where, comes up with a set of ideas that the people rally behind him. And then by the time he dethrones the previous king, he's become a tyrant because he's pushing his ways on other people. And that's something that Lao Tzu noticed. So like he wanted to criticize that. And so Goku, because he is completely void, because everything he does is based on instinct and he's not fighting based on an idea of justice or anything like that, he naturally leads the universe in a better direction, because that is, according to the Tao Te Ching, how you are supposed to be a leader and how you are supposed to. It basically fixes the problem that the Chinese royalty was having at the time. So that's how Toriyama cleverly took from that. Goku is pure of heart in the same way that it's stated in the Tao Te Ching someone is pure of heart. So like when you think of like Goku's pure of heart, just think of like a little kid or like an animal. Like
he's very innocent. I did a whole video on this years ago about Goku's pure heart explained when I went into explicit detail about that. Vegeta, on the other hand, not so much pure of heart.
So because Goku is pure of heart, he naturally makes the best decisions without trying, because he's not capable of evil thought. And that's what separates Goku from Vegeta. The intentions for this, but when Goku was younger, Roshi taught him a set of principles known as Budo. And if you actually go and look up what Budo means, it actually literally means war or martial.
Right.
And
it like
means
martial
Dao
arts
in Chinese.
Right.
It means it's Taoist martial arts. And what that teaches is you don't become the strongest by trying to defeat other people. You become strongest by trying to defeat your own ego.
The opposite of Vegeta, in a way.
Exactly. So that's what Roshi has been teaching Goku ever since he was a kid, which is a reference to what Subhuti taught Sun Wukong in Journey to the West. And you can see this multiple times in the series. Goku, like, he makes a decision that seems questionable, but it actually ends up creating a situation that makes the universe a better place. So, like, for example, whenever he gave Piccolo a senzu the first time in the original Dragon Ball, without that decision, ultimately, he would have died to Raditz. He wouldn't have had Piccolo there to help him. Same thing with Vegeta. If it wasn't for him sparing Vegeta, ultimately, Gohan and Krillin would have died on Namek. So even though these decisions seem inherently selfish on the surface, because he's doing it out of a pure heart and based on instinct, it ends up causing the best possible scenario in the future and making the universe a better place as a result.
Yeah, it's like causality, cause and effect. We talked about that in another video I did. A lot of this stuff that we've talked about here, that you've talked about, I've discussed in various videos throughout the years, but we have a lot of new subscribers who, y'all got to go back and check out Dragon Ball in depth, because I talked about a lot of this in other videos. I had a video about causality, which didn't get that many views, because I don't think people understood the importance of cause and effect in Dragon Ball. Things happen for a reason, and that's how it is in real life too. But it's interesting how when things happen in Dragon Ball that might seem bad, they actually turn good, and that a lot of that is fascinating, a fascinating outlook on life when you really think about it.
Yeah, because he's incapable of evil thoughts, so as a result, you just got to think about it this way. So like in Taoism, you are rewarded for basically being an instinctual being, for basically just making all of your decisions based on instinct and not based on an idea of what's right and wrong. So that's the reason that Goku is constantly rewarded for making all these decisions based on his biology. That's also the reason that they're kind of trying to shoehorn Bardock being compassionate into Saiyan biology, because they want Goku to be an example of what they want him to be an example of that aspect of Saiyan biology being purified, just like they want Vegeta to be an example of the other aspect of Saiyan biology to be purified. Like they're both an example of like what the Saiyans had the potential to be, but purified and heightened to like its greatest potential.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, and that's an ultra ego and ultra instinct are basically their greatest potential. I mean, the two forms are different because one is much more about the external mind and one's much more internal. And I always found that to be really interesting. When they were first coming up with this, on the surface, it just appears to be like, well, it's the Beerus method. Well, it's the Whis method. But there's a lot more to it when it comes to how these methods mirror Goku and Vegeta. And I do wonder if when Toriyama was first coming up with Beerus and Whis, knowing Toriyama's history, I don't think he had this planned all the way back then, but the fact that he was able to kind of make it all fit is pretty genius when you think about it. I'm not going to sit here and say Toriyama as a writer is on the same level he was in the 80s and 90s, because he's just not. But the fact that he was able to actually make this work to where it makes sense is kind of interesting.
Yeah, the way he goes about basically taking Vegeta's character themes and purify them through the idea of a god of destruction is really fascinating to me. And like Super Dragon Ball Heroes actually did an episode. I don't know if you remember, but they did an episode where Vegeta got that dark aura form, you know?
Yeah.
And they do a really good job explaining what Ultra Ego is essentially going to do for Vegeta, even though that has nothing to do with Ultra Ego. It basically points out where Vegeta's mindset is. So there's a clip in Super Dragon Ball Heroes where Turles is influenced by Cumber to think that evil is the true nature of the Saiyans, right? And we all know that, you know, Vegeta has been ruthless in the past, but whenever he's posed with this question, he disagrees with Turles, surprisingly enough. And he actually gets really upset that Turles suggests that evil is their true nature. And he ends up, it shows a flashback of whenever Vegeta was giving his speech about Goku, where he was talking about how Goku is superior because he allows his opponents to live, which ultimately leads to him getting stronger. So basically, like, the point of the exchange is that Cumber was the first Saiyan to ever corrupt the Saiyan race with his ways. That's kind of his theme. He makes other Saiyans evil by corrupting them and influencing them.
Right.
And Goku is the exact opposite. He purifies people, you know, like he purifies people's nature. And so they did a really good job hammering this point home, because Vegeta even says himself that it's wrong that evil is the true nature of the Saiyans. The true nature of the Saiyans is to keep fighting, right? Is to keep growing stronger and to strive for more strength. That more than anything.
They have very different philosophies. Like I mentioned the Ultra Ego Vegeta video. See, it's not really, it's nature versus nurture. Because he was raised on Earth, his perspective on things, and he had different training than Vegeta did with Roshi, Karin, Kami-sama, Kaio-sama later on. His perspective is totally different than Vegeta's. And I think part of Vegeta's character growth is him accepting the fact that his way is not the only way. But at the same time, when we get to Dragon Ball Super, he realizes that Goku's way might not be the right way for him.
Well, what he does is he actually takes what he sees from Goku, and he makes his own version of it. That's what he's doing with Ultra Ego.
Right.
Like I was telling you before, when Goku makes a decision based on his instincts, based on his need to grow stronger, and his, you know, whenever he's not making it based on a set of ideas, he always ends up getting the best result. And Vegeta in the past, he's always made all of his decisions based on his ego, right? And that's the reason that it might look like he's a hero, like in the short term, but actually in reality, all the decisions he ends up making, they end up biting him in the ass, because the series is basically trying to tell you that the decisions he's making are inherently wrong. You're not supposed to be making decisions based on your ego or your ideas, but Vegeta with Ultra Ego now has the opportunity to fight solely based on his instincts, not Goku's instincts, because they have different instincts. But Vegeta, because he is using his innermost instincts to make his decisions, he now has the opportunity to be an equal to Goku, because he's not going to suffer for his decisions like he has in the past once he completely masters Ultra Ego, because he's not making his decisions based on any idea of right or wrong or justice or anything like that. He is simply just giving into his instincts and giving into the fight and fighting. So, like, if you notice, Beerus is above his own actions. Like, Beerus does not have to pay for anything that he does. And that's really what they're trying to accomplish for Vegeta. They're trying to make it, they're basically justifying and making what Vegeta has thought was correct his whole life, they're making it correct. You know, like Goku has tried to tell Vegeta multiple times, you know, the way you do things is wrong.
Yeah,
but,
and actually, some feel that that's character regression, and it's really not. It's actually more character advancement, because what's happening is Vegeta's coming to terms with who he is. That's really what it is, and that by no means necessarily means that killing innocent people is right, because that's not the point here. That's not what this is about. It's about the philosophy of how you carry yourself in life and how you feel about yourself. It's not about murdering people. Vegeta has already, you know, advanced enough to know that killing people for fun is not fun for him anymore. But killing the enemies that threaten those that hurt him and being ruthless about that, that's the right way to go. At least in Vegeta's case.
Well, think about this. Makes the mortal level fall. Think about what Frieza did when he was running around working on the universe. The mortal level ultimately fell because the only people that he allowed to live were assholes, and not just assholes, but weak. You know what I mean? So Vegeta, he prides his strength and his idea of getting stronger over everything else. So Vegeta, he used to have an idea that everyone who was weak deserved to die, but that's not the case anymore. Like, he believes that only certain people who are evil, who are also weak, deserve to die. Like, it's more so about, like, if he's going to run into an enemy, he's going to judge them. And if he can't, and if they don't have a fighter's spirit, if they don't have this idea of like getting stronger and like, you know, conquering themselves, he's going to look down on that and he's going to erase them. It's really, if you think about it, like the ideas that Vegeta holds dear could actually lead to the entire universe becoming better as a result. Because if he's stern on all these people that he meets and he expects them to have a fighter spirit and develop themselves, ultimately that'll lead to the entire universe developing themselves, similar to how Goku has been doing it this whole time, but it's Vegeta doing it in his own way. Like in the one of the Dragon Ball Super chapters, Vegeta even says, "I'm going to give you a dose of my tough love." And if you look in the past, he's bettered people through that method himself. So like Beerus, whenever he met Goku in Battle of Gods, he actually pushed Goku to new heights, and that was the first time that Goku had like experienced someone who could push him that way in a really long time. And what's really ironic about it is he was the opposite of Goku in every way. He was completely merciless. He didn't care about anyone. And yet he still managed to push Goku to new heights. Goku has managed to push everybody to new heights because he has compassion for people and because he allows people to grow. But Beerus, under the threat of destruction, causes people to, you know, rise above the occasion and become stronger. So like Vegeta, he does the exact same. He does the exact same thing with Cabba.
It's two different methods of achieving a similar conclusion.
Yeah, it's two different methods of, but with the same result. So like Cabba versus Vegeta is a great example of that. Vegeta was disgusted whenever Cabba didn't have his Saiyan pride, but by the end of that fight, he ended up pushing Cabba to become a Super Saiyan because that's how much potential Vegeta has as a destroyer. So he is so good, in fact, that he accidentally pushed Granola to break his limits. He didn't mean to do that, but because he's so good at pushing people to better themselves, he ended up doing it anyway. So that's kind of the series giving us a hint as to what Vegeta's character is going to be as in the future. He's going to kind of be Goku's equal in a way. Together, based on two different methods, they both have the potential to better the universe through their methods.
And we're not going to talk about which form is stronger because that's a different video, I feel. This is more so about like the philosophies and the pathways they've taken, because you're going to have people debating which form is stronger, because there are, even though the angels are obviously at a higher tier than the gods of destruction, we've seen that, people are going to say, well, that doesn't necessarily mean that Goku's an angel, because he's not, and Vegeta's not a God, but they're tapping, it's more about mentality than actual, like, you know, who's stronger. We'll save that for another video. I was just wanting to make that point.
Yeah, so in the Moro arc, there's basically like this good cop, bad cop scene where like Vegeta's like about to wipe out Moro and Goku like has mercy on him. That's a really good way of basically looking at basically the character themes that they're really trying to play on for Goku and Vegeta. Like, it really highlights the future of each character if you like really think about it. Like, they've already played on Goku's ability to better the multiverse a lot. So there's a lot of room for them to give Vegeta, you know, room to do the same thing in the future. For example, like Zeno, he noticed that Hit, you know, got stronger as a result of his running with Goku, and who ended up having that effect on the entire multiverse by the end of the Tournament of Power. So like Goku's method of bettering the universe has already been expanded on and used like a lot in the series. And that, in combination with what Vegeta's intentions are as a character, has the potential to push Universe 7 to a new level of mortal level. because if Vegeta, this whole good cop, bad cop thing that I noticed in the Moro arc, if they continue to use that method on most of the villains and the people that they face, they have the potential as yin and yang together, destruction and recreation. Because you got to think about it, like everyone has been recreated as a result of running it with Goku. Vegeta, Piccolo, that's kind of Goku's character themes. He causes people to build themselves up from scratch and recreate themselves and work on themselves. And so if they work together as yin and yang, Goku and Vegeta right now have the potential to basically create a more advanced and complex, powerful universe than anything we've seen so far. And I think that's the intentions of the characters going forward. And, a lot of people have issue with the aspects of Goku and Vegeta's character that I'm talking about. Goku having mercy and Vegeta being merciless.
Yeah, people have criticized Super a lot for that lately, even back in the Moro arc.
Yeah, but what I don't think people understand is that they are taking Goku and Vegeta and they are making them a perfect version of themselves. That's like the overall intentions of the characters. So like Goku, if he completely masters Ultra Instinct, guess what? He can be as merciful as he wants, and he will still be standing there like a brick wall, and there will be nothing anybody can do about it. Just like how, he tried to be that way towards Granola, and then Granola highlighted where he still had weaknesses. If Goku doesn't have those weaknesses anymore, he can be himself, and he can be a perfect version of himself who doesn't have to pay in any way for the decisions that he makes, right? And that's kind of the end goal for Goku as a character, but it's also the end goal for Vegeta as a character, which I think is more relevant because he seems to be punished more quickly and more in succession. Like when Goku, when he has to deal with issues, it's just a test to see if he will maintain that aspect of his personality. And that's what they teach in Taoism. Like you're not going to be completely void of karma, even if you are completely good, because you constantly have to be tested to maintain that,
Yeah,
so
that's life as a whole, and both of them approach it from a different perspective because of the way they were raised. It's all about the way you're raised and your philosophy there.
Yeah, and because Goku constantly, because he keeps that attitude about him, he's rewarded for it. Like that's the reason that by every arc, everyone's smiling, everyone's happy, the Earth's restored, Mirrors is alive, whatever. Like he accidentally ends up creating the best possible scenario because he's so pure of heart and because his decisions are based on that. So that's what's special about Goku. But Vegeta, right now, what he's having to learn, like you said in your previous video, Vegeta believed that the legendary Super Saiyan was supposed to be merciless. His dad taught him that. His whole his whole life, even his ancestors believed from the time that they saw the legendary Super Saiyan that every single child that they had to be raised to be this merciless creature in order for them to achieve that same power that they saw 1,000 years ago. So like the Super Saiyan itself is the reasoning Vegeta is the way he is as much as his parents. Like the idea of the Super Saiyan, because I mean you've seen it yourself, when somebody becomes Super Saiyan, especially Broly, they completely lose themselves. So it would make a lot of sense for his ancestors to see that and then to mistake that for, what it takes to actually become a Super Saiyan. So Vegeta's not completely wrong about that now because he's taking what he learned from his ancestors and what his ancestors tried to breed into him, and he's actually using it to become a god of destruction. Like everything that Vegeta's entire life has been encapsulated around leads to this interaction with Beerus. Beerus is the first person to tell Vegeta that the way he does things is necessary, it is right, it's something that's needed. And, to me personally, I really like that direction for Vegeta because I don't like the idea of Vegeta's ego being completely unjustified his whole life. And, I like the idea that Vegeta had some kind of justification for feeling the way he did. Not necessarily when it comes to like taking out good guys and stuff, but just like being merciless in general. Like
it's not about like we talked about. It's not about killing innocent people. It's about his methods of resolving problems. That's basically how it is. You know,
Right,
Vegeta
exactly.
has learned because of Goku about compassion. So his development, so basically his development continues. Goku's development may have been above Vegeta's, but Vegeta's is still ongoing. So let us know what you think in the comments down below about the Taoist and kind of the differences and similarities between Ultra Instinct and Ultra Ego. And thank you so much, Jordan, for that thorough look at the differences between the philosophies of the two and why these forms matter in Dragon Ball Super. You know, Super's got a lot of issues, but I said myself that I felt like Dragon Ball Super and Ultra Instinct, that Ultra Instinct was my favorite thing about Super. And it was. And Ultra Ego's like right there. I mean, we haven't seen enough of it yet, especially not animated, but it's, you know, it's apples and oranges, but who doesn't like apples and oranges? You know, they're pretty similar, but also different. So thank you again for being here. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one.